everybody, welcome back. It's nice to see all of you here again today. My name is Sharon Chaden Glass, and I've been hosting these networking sessions, Instructional Designers and Educators Alliance. I've been doing this for almost 3 years, or is that right? No, 2 years, sorry. Pandemic was really long. And today we have two guest speakers. We have Steve Corney and we have Emily Erow. Erow? I didn't ask you, Emily. Is it Erow? Okay, she's nodding yes.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Erow, and I am an instructional design specialist for smart technologies. You might have some smart boards, smart displays in your classroom. Those behind me. Yep. So I work for them. I build a lot of the online resources for teachers for Smart. I've been with Smart for about a year. Before that, I spent 5 years in local government doing employee professional development. And before that, I was a teacher in elementary school. And so I've been out of the classroom for about 6 years at this point. It's been a journey. It's been a long time transition over for me into instructional design, but that's because I took my time to do it. So yeah, basically I did 4 years in the classroom, 4 years, 3 different schools, and decided I want to use my skill set in education elsewhere. And so I started looking at professional development opportunities, training opportunities, things where I could take that skill set of facilitating a classroom or a training and building curriculum and transferring it over. And so I actually was lucky enough to be hired by a former teacher who is now human resources for local government, and got in there, and I've spent 5 years doing their leadership program, kind of building my skills in building leadership curriculum, building leadership design. I facilitated a 2-year, actually it was a cohort-based 2-year class on leadership and development for them. And in the midst of that, I decided that I wanted to explore instructional design, and that's how I ended up at Smart. I went back to school and got my degree in instructional design from the University of Central Florida, and just have been building the skill set in the corporate world that is a lot different than being in the classroom, I will say. After transferring out of the classroom into it's the tax collector in Florida. I don't know if anybody is familiar, but tax collectors in Florida are kind of like your DMV. So I went from a 5th grade classroom to hanging out with people that did driver's licenses all the time. So it was a great learning experience on how to kind of take that skill set and move it over. One of the biggest things I think I learned in that transition was just how to be around adults, because you don't really like do all that when you're by yourself in a classroom all day. And so just trying to work on like building those corporate skills, things that we kind of take advantage of in the classroom, like our abilities to be strong writers, be strong facilitators, and be able to do a lot of research and put things together that make sense, and take the business aspects that I really needed to learn and combine it all into one nice little package. I started working for Smart because I missed education. I knew I always wanted to do something with education. And so after 5 years doing driver's license, registration, leadership, I did soft skills training, those different types of things. I decided I wanted to look for a new opportunity to get back into working with educators. And so I was able to combine my love of technology with my love of education, and that's how I ended up in ed tech. And so that was kind of my rambly story. That's how I ended up here, just trying to put all those skill sets together and kind of figure out where my niche was in the corporate and business world. And you kind of have to find out what your passion is and figure out where you want to put yourself to go after it. And there's so many different opportunities now, especially in corporate, where they're looking for former teachers to do professional development, to do training, and to take those pieces. It doesn't necessarily have to be instructional design. It could be anything within the realm of learning and development that you're looking for to kind of get into that transition. And so there's so many opportunities where just teachers can take those skill sets that we have and transfer them over and start learning from the corporate pieces and combining it all into a little package. And that's the biggest thing, is you just have to always be open to asking those questions when you're in the corporate world, because I've been there a year now and I still am like, I don't know what you're talking about. That's a lot of numbers. Somebody needs to tell me how to do this. But then also knowing where your strengths lie from that facilitation and building that curriculum and being able to put everything in that nice little package for a learner. And so many opportunities, and I'm happy to chat with you guys more about that over in the breakout rooms as we get there. I see that Sarah asked the question about how to find corporate opportunities. It's just keywords. You start looking for training, and Steve may be able to add some to this as well, but like looking for those keywords: learning and development, training and development, training facilitator, professional development, learning development. If you're looking for instructional design, look for instructional designer, and just keep looking for those keywords. And LinkedIn is a good place to look, to pull different job opportunities and look. Amazon's always hiring. It just can be packaged under so many different titles. And some of it is that corporate just doesn't know what to call it yet, as some of them are still getting in that space of instructional design and learning and development. Some of them just don't know what to call it. And so you're looking for anything with learning. And again, Steve may be able to have more of those as well, but that's my experience, is just all of those different little keywords.
I have one question to ask you, Emily, before I hand it over to Steve. Did networking play any role in helping you kind of make that transition, or did you take I know you said you went and you went back and got a master's, right?
Yes, I have a master's in instructional design.
Did you find that networking played a role in helping you get that first position after you finished that?
Yes, and so actually, as I built my network on LinkedIn, everybody, especially with my classmates, but then with other people, we were kind of sharing job postings and different things on LinkedIn. And just anybody where you see that, like, I'm hiring, that nice little purple banner, make friends with them. And then even as I was interviewing, I was actually adding the people that were interviewing me on LinkedIn, just so they could see my presence on LinkedIn as well.
Awesome. All right, Steve, are you ready?
Oof. Tough act to follow. What amazing.
My rambling.
Not at all. Hey, those smart whiteboards are so cool. I have a fun story for you. You need to take this back to the product team. They need to be able to erase permanent marker, because, yeah, I got on there with a Sharpie and it was not pretty.
I will let them know.
Needs to be Steve proof. Folks, hey, nice to see you. And again, thank you so much, Sharon, for letting me jump in, because what I'm seeing is I'm currently like making connections and hanging out with the wonderful people in the US of A from Australia. I'm actually in Hawaii at the moment, but that's beside the point. What I'm seeing so much of in the US compared to Australia is this transitioning teacher movement. And as I started seeing the posts, I'm like, hang on a second, we do this already, right? We do this in Australia. And in my agency, I'm an agency owner. I own an agency called Learn Awesome. And I need to just probably dispel a couple of myths. I don't have instructional design qualifications. I didn't know anything about learning design before I got into it 15 years ago. My designers in my agency are better than me in every aspect of learning design. So it's a privilege to be able to work with amazingly skilled people. And probably the thing that's most relevant to this audience is I take so much pride and pleasure in taking non-instructional design people from other industries, and teachers are one of those people that is sitting on my design team at the moment, who is actually better than me at design, and taking people who haven't been infected, and I mean that respectfully to the learning and development industry, but I feel that we get these biases, we get these bad ideas, we get these habits or these images which when I then recruit and try and hire a new designer that is a purist instructional designer, I have a lot of trouble molding and merging them into my world. So what I've found is it's so much easier to take people off the streets in other industries. So we've got graphic artists who I've then taught how to do instructional design, and they are crushing it. I've taken teachers who already have the education component, the structure, the classroom management, the learning objective stuff, and I've shown them how to do storyline, do Captivate. That stuff's easy. I do that in about a week with our guys when we onboard new staff, and they're already designing stuff that is what I would consider, corporatized and ready. So I'm just looking through the comments, and yeah, it looks like it's all happening. But I'd love to know where you guys are at. So just so I can get, so maybe just a couple of words in the chat. Where are you guys at in terms of your adventures into the world of learning and development? Because I want to obviously make this relevant to you, and we can obviously ask those questions more specifically in the breakout rooms if you need to. But while that's coming through, I just probably want to talk about some of the things that I see when I hire or when I interview specifically transitioning teachers or people that are currently teaching, wanting to get into the world of instructional design. The biggest thing I see is your ability to talk learning and development language. And you know how to do everything in the L&D space, believe me. What I find though is I find the ability to articulate that stuff in an interview scene. It's either a combination of a lack of confidence or a lack of context into that space. And an example of that would be, there's a lot of people out there that say, hey, just create a portfolio piece using Articulate's free trial in an area that's interesting to you or an area of interest, which is great, because what will happen is you'll learn how to use the tool, you'll learn how to figure out some stuff in Storyline. But then when it comes to the interview, if you're using that as an interview piece, I'm going to ask you, hey, tell me about the process that you went through in the planning, design, development stages to bring this thing to life. And that's probably the biggest gap that exists for me, is that it's all well and good to have a beautiful portfolio, but being able to articulate or like why you chose Storyline instead of Captivate, that to me is much more valuable than whether or not you know how to do variables or state changes in Articulate. I can teach you how to do that from an agency perspective, and from a corporate perspective, you can figure that stuff out very, very quickly. For me and for the stakeholders and for the recruiters, they're looking for your ability to say, hey, this is one of the challenges that I faced with this piece. It was interacting with the subject matter experts and getting the information in a timely manner. I managed that by implementing these steps into my review process and my QA process. And so, yeah, I just see a massive gap in this space where, there's such opportunity for you to then maybe look at ways that you can create portfolio pieces, but also think about how you could possibly articulate it as well. So if you look at our portfolio, now I spun one up recently just because I got bored. If you go to learnawesome.com.au, I'll chuck it in the chat for you. Or if you're connecting with me on LinkedIn, it's all there. On our website, instead of actually giving people access to my Storyline files, I actually do a video screen recording of me taking you through the actual Storyline file or the e-learning program that I've created. Because what that allows me to do is it allows me to do more than just show you what I've built. It doesn't just lock me into, oh, this is my building skills. And if I put you up against someone else, I'm comparing like for like, this person's design skills versus this person's. Whereas if I'm watching a video of you, tell me why you created this program. Tell me the benefits of using this tool over that tool, or how this will help with user experience or engagement. All of a sudden, I'm starting to pick up a lot more about you as a designer instead of just one element of your design skills. So I would say that by far would be absolutely massive. Sharon, learnawesome.org is wonderful. You could check that out. But as much as many people go there, they come back and say, Steve, that's not a learning agency. That's something very strange and weird. So check that one out there in the chat, folks. So yeah. That's sort of where I'm at. And again, I really look forward to hanging out. One of the things, I guess, before I finish up, one of the things that we do in Australia, which, believe it or not, this venture into the US and hanging out with people from a networking perspective, which is also super important. We run sort of like a reverse internship. And so we help in Oz, we help not-for-profits, and we've got an academy called the Life Skill Academy, which is a bunch of life skill programs for teenagers and students at schools and universities and colleges that we allow people who are transitioning into instructional design to actually come and do an internship with my agency. And then we give you a not-for-profit, or we give you a Life Skill Academy program to build, to actually publish and go through the entire sort of project framework, so that not only when you finish it do you have something to rave about on your portfolio, but you actually get an endorsement from our agency. You also get an accreditation or an endorsement from our client in this case, and we've found that that's been really helpful for peeps back home in Oz. So again, there's heaps of cool stuff that's available, and I think you've just got to think a little bit outside the box to make it happen. But yeah, definitely don't doubt that you have the ability. You have the ability, because if I'm able to be a learning designer, anyone can be a learning designer. So yeah, I'll probably just finish up there, and I can't wait to hang out with you guys in the breakout rooms and just hear about all your adventures and all the things there. And it's I really appreciate the interaction in the chat, but I'll catch up with those now. So Sharon, thank you very much. Yeah. Thank you, team. Look forward to hanging out soon.
All right. Oh, good. Yes, I'm not on mute. Excellent. So for those of you who don't know anything about me, I'll just very quickly say that I work in the higher education realm. I spent almost all of my career teaching English to international students in intensive English programs in higher education. And I switched in 2019, and I am an instructional media designer for a community college, which means that I work with faculty to develop scripts for videos, starting with what are your needs? What are you trying to accomplish? And then figuring out what is the technology, or what is the way that we are going to address that need with the tools that we have. It could be, lots of people come to us saying they want a video, and sometimes video isn't the thing that they actually need to accomplish what they want to do. So that is what I'm doing now. So just so you know, like, who do you want to talk to? We have, me and Steve and Emily are all in very different spaces within learning and development and instructional design. So you are free to go to either of their rooms or stay out here with me if you have questions for me. Okay, welcome back, everybody. And before we get going into our whole group Q&A, I want to mention that the next session that we're going to have will be on Tuesday, August 2nd from 7 to 8 Eastern. And if you're like me and you want to get registered right away because you plan every moment of your life, I'm going to put the registration link into the chat so you can get it done, and we'll see you back here in August. There you go. There's your link to register for August. I'm going to open it up for whole group Q&A, and I will try to defer mostly to our guest speakers since they're our guests today. But if you have something specific for me, just let me know. Does anyone have a question out there that they would like to ask?
So this is the first time I've heard about or even considered an agency for learning and design, and just that whole realm is opening my mind a little bit on what the different possibilities are in this world. So is this agency idea something that is common, I guess, as far as an agency to hire instructional designers, or is it a smaller little world in itself? Is this something that I should be weighing pros and cons with considering? Just more information about agency versus working as a person for one company or working as a freelancer, those kinds of things. I'm kind of trying to figure out what the best route would be.
Yeah, you're welcome to take that one, Steve.
Whoever knows anything is fine with me.
If you want me to, I'll have a crack as an agency owner. The reason I got into a learning agency is because I taught myself how to use Moodle. Moodle's an LMS. It's open source. It's cool. It'll break your soul. So just don't go down that rabbit hole unless you're highly caffeinated. I built some really cool stuff for my boss, and he didn't like it. And he didn't like it, not because it wasn't pretty, not because it wasn't beautiful. He just wasn't ready to be unlocked into the world of online education. So pretty much after he shot me down in a blaze of glory, I set my agency up the next day. And at that time, I didn't know what the deal was. I didn't know that I could work for multiple people at once. I just wanted the flexibility and decision-making capabilities that came with being master of my own destiny. So I guess the pros and cons, real quick. If you work for a company, then you obviously have a structure that allows you to get paid, you get insurance, whatever, all the benefits of being an employee, right? But with that comes the cons, which is, you get what you're given. You have to work on their tech stack, you have to work on their projects, you have to work with their people. So that may or may not be pros or cons, depending on what you do. But then, for me, as setting up an agency, you can set up an agency as a one-person band, but you just call yourself a freelancer, or you call yourself an agency and change the language on your website from I to we. All of a sudden, you're an agency. Again, life-shocking hacks that I'm dropping today, but I can assure you, it's a challenge, because then you've obviously responsible for finding your own work. But in terms of this day and age, someone needs to come in. Hey, we have a problem. We need a little 30-minute e-learn build. We don't have the staff, or our learning department's busy, or we don't even know what L&D is. Can you just come in and help us? And then you go in and do that. Obviously, you're responsible for getting the work. So you've got to do marketing, you've got to do your sales, you've got to do your taxes, you've got to do all that sort of stuff. Some people may want to do that, some people might not. But again, for me, I like the variety, and I like the fact that then I can help other people. That's the privilege that I'm in at the moment, is I've got other designers that I can give work and put bread on their table. So I get to then go and find cool work and cool clients for them to do, so that all they have to worry about is just doing what they're really great at. So, I mean, it comes with a whole bunch of stuff. And Elizabeth, really great stuff in terms of helping give some insight there around structures and all that sort of jazz. But yeah, ultimately, that would be how I'd see some of the pros and cons there for sure, Laura. And you can absolutely do well in both. I think you can be both at the same time as well. You could be an employee at Amazon. Amazon's been mentioned a couple of times today, and you can have a side hustle on the nights or on the weekends or whatever, where you're doing some smaller stuff for invoices instead of paychecks.
Emily, do you want to speak to that too?
Totally.
I'm not sure what I can add to Steve's awesome Australian accent explanation there. I've never worked with agency, so I can't really speak to that. I was checking out his website as he was talking, though, and it's got some really cool things on it, so you should definitely check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Because funny story about that website is that we had a client, so we went and pitched for a job with a bank, and they're like, "Where's your website?" I mean, we don't have one. They're like, "Well, our procurement team, that's the fancy word for the people that sign the checks, we can't hire you unless you've got a website." So I built that website as the anti-website to so forgive this language and this reference, to take the piss, which is a thing that Australians are very good at, of their process. So that's again one of the benefits of being your master of your own destiny, is that you can, if you want, take the piss out of the process, the world, the industry, and sort of carve your own brand, your own image, your own style. And I know designers that are out there that are super creative. So Teddy, we were talking in our room about how we can specialize in an area of L&D. As an agency, as a freelancer, you are much more likely to be successful if you specialize and if you hyper specialize. So Teddy, in this case, story and creative writing, that would be an area that as a freelancer, you could get some work and get really specific stuff there, which you can charge a premium rate for. And maybe you just do some standard generalist L&D stuff as your main thing. Again, the choice is yours.
And I will say, from that perspective, I did speak a little bit about this in our room, is that when you're looking for positions and you're looking for some place that you want to work for, if you don't want to do agency or freelance, find an area that you're going to love, because otherwise you're going to be doing the same thing. You're just going to be trying to get back out again. Yeah. And so you can look at hundreds and hundreds of instructional design or learning design positions on LinkedIn. But if it doesn't speak to you as something that you want to do long term, don't do it just so that you can transition. I worked for 5 years in government because I wanted out of the classroom, and it gave me some experience. But then 6 years later, I found ed tech because I wanted back out again. And ed tech is really where my passion is, because I like supporting educators and I like the technology side. So I was able to combine two things that I'm very passionate about into one nice little corporate package. And so it's not as cool as being a freelancer, but I love it because that's my interest. And so find something that you're going to love doing, or that you can see yourself transitioning into later, because otherwise you're just not going to be happy no matter where you transition to. It's not all about, and I know nobody wants to hear this, but it's not all about the work from home or being able to travel or all that. It's just still gotta love what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so if you're more comfortable in the corporate space, having that safety net, then by all means have at it, but find something that you're going to really enjoy doing.
Yeah. We have about 7 minutes left. Laura, it looks like you were trying to say thank you.
Sorry, I was. And I was also going to piggyback a little bit on that idea. I think as educators, we're really purpose-driven people, generally speaking, and that makes a big impact on our choices and our jobs. So I think you're absolutely right about finding something you love.
Laura, to echo your sentiment just before, I think, yes, educators are beautiful humans, right? My sister-in-law is a math teacher. She's incredible, but just riddled with doubt. Every time I speak to her, she just, I can't do this. I'm running a webinar on something for other teachers. I'm freaking out. And it's like, yeah, absolutely. Like you're all so committed and driven and willing to just lay it all down on the line for the good of your students. And in this case, just replace students to learners, and you're in the corporate L&D space, right? But where you need to be a little bit more cutthroat or ruthless is around that, where you want to go and what you want, right? So I don't want you all to think that when you leave this, you have to like bend and mold and sort of give everything to be able to have the opportunity to work for someone, right? Because in the corporate world will take advantage of that. They'll take advantage of your niceness, and they'll reward people who are a little bit more, maybe the word confident is that, or has the confidence to ask for what they want, or just take control of certain things in the interview, like asking other questions, or saying, that style of work doesn't really suit me. Is there anything else that we can do? So I think it's important to have both aspects to your personality, especially when you go out into this world of recruitment and selection and HR. It can be a really, really gross world. And again, the support of this network and people like Sharon and Emily and those sorts are going to be really useful to you to just keep your energy levels high and keep your spirits up as well.
One thing too is we keep saying corporate, but if you're not looking for corporate space, there's so many other like nonprofits and smaller causes that are also looking for instructional designers now, and looking for people that can like build things around their causes. Look for those on LinkedIn too, those smaller companies, because one, you may find something that you're passionate about, that you're like, oh, I really want to support this cause. But they're also the ones who maybe can't quite pay as much, but you're still getting that love of whatever it is that you're working on. So look in that space as well. Happy birthday, America.
You.
Maybe this year will be better than the last. I don't know. We just, I know, Liz, right? We just keep shaking our head and being like, it's got to get better. We got to vote. We're ruthless now. We're ruthless, and we have to vote. That's me being political, but it's true. We've got to try. Absolutely, Anne. All right. So I hope that I see you back here Tuesday, August 2nd, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern. And Steve, Emily, thank you so much for coming here and sharing your experience and your humanity. And it's just always really nice to meet people, even if it's just this space. This is what we can do, right? We're going to use this technology, and we're gonna do good. And Michelle asked me if this is my business and I make any money. I do not. This is just the way that I give back to the world, and I'm really happy that it fills your cup and it makes you smile, and that does a lot for me. I'm all good. I got a job. I transitioned, and I'm all good. So I don't need any more money. I'm just happy. I will see you guys hopefully next month. Thank you for joining us, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
Mhm.
Thank you.